When you're a child, you, like I said, internalize it and try and understand why people are weaponizing this. What is wrong about this? And if people are weaponizing this, then there must be a reason. But the reason is you. The inverse of growing up and understanding it is people are weaponizing this. There must be a reason. The reason is them.
Exactly.
It's their reason. It's their issue.
Yeah.
You can't let somebody, just because they're acting violently towards you, verbally or whatever way, transfer their issues onto you. You have your own to deal with.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Envisionaire podcast with Nicole Nguyen. This is a podcast where we explore everyday topics, share our experiences, and help turn life's challenges into life's opportunities. Let's get ready to envision living our best lives. On today's episode, we have Oriyan Prizant, who will be discussing the topic of overcoming bullying and self-empowerment. I have known Oriyan for over 7 years. We first forged our friendship over long study sessions at the law library at Cambridge, over many orders of Domino's pizza and watching Gogglebox and The Real Housewives of New York City, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears before our final law exams. It is a friendship forged in fire, and I'm very grateful to have my dear friend on the Envisionaire podcast. So, welcome, Oriyan! Yay!
Thank you very much for the, as per usual, incredibly generous introduction.
It's true. Well, the reason I wanted to have you here is because you have had a profoundly positive impact on my self-growth while we were studying together at Cambridge, whether you know it or not. I think I've told you that before. You were constantly... You were constantly pushing me not to settle for any guy who wasn't treating me well enough, and constantly pushing me to have a stronger voice and not to be pushed around. I remember many times we had lots of conversations about that. You not only helped to build me up, but you also walked the walk as well. I always admired your ability to stand up for yourself with both strangers and authority figures, which is something I always struggled with, and even your own close circle of friends and family, which again is sometimes really hard.
It is a struggle. Sometimes standing up to the people you love most is, as I know of recent events, it is a struggle.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what's weird? I struggle the opposite. Like I struggle more with strangers. I'm super worried about offending them rather than I'm like my own family. I'm like, I'll tell you how it is.
I mean, I wish I had that. I'm the opposite. I don't care if all the strangers hate me, so long as I feel I've said my piece. But family and friends is so difficult because I want you to love me.
Yeah. Exactly. Right. So one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk about this topic is because who I got to know as one of my close friends. And I think anyone looking at you now, for the listeners who don't know, Oriyan has a very impressive Instagram follower. I call him a influencer. He gets embarrassed. He's very embarrassed right now. He's looking at me very embarrassed, but it's true.
I'm not. I don't influence anyone.
In any event, you're still influencing. And you know what? Whether you like it or not, or whether you even know it, you probably have had a positive impact on someone. If they look at your profile and they say, oh my gosh, he is muscular. I want to start going to the gym too. You know? Anyway, you do have an influence. I think you're an influencer and it's very fun. What I wanted to say was that I think that is one of the reasons if anyone saw your profile, they would say, what? He would never have been bullied. But actually, I remember a couple of years into our friendship, you shared that you had some experience with bullying. And I was really shocked by that, because you're so confident and you're so empowered and you really empower those around you who you care about. So yeah, I thought this was a really great topic and I'm really excited to discuss this with you. And I hope that you will share some of your experiences with our listeners and hopefully offer some practical tips for those who are still struggling to deal with and overcome bullies. So Oriyan, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up? Family dynamics? Who was a really big influence on you to build your confidence and your self-worth? Because I think that's really, really important. It starts sometimes when you're younger.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can start with the fact that I was born and raised in Israel, so a very interesting and not controversial at all place to grow up in. And basically, well, we're discussing the topic of confidence and bullying. And I was I wouldn't say flamboyant, but I was a very energetic child with my own ideas and my own perception of what is cool and what isn't. I was very independent spirited in that regard. And when kids develop and they grow older and they become acquainted with social patterns and social hierarchy, there is a sense of communal cultural passions, right? That you should have. It's cool to like this, it's cool to like that. And I never ascribed to that because I was very, like I said, independent. I had my own view on things. I didn't think that the music I listened to, the artists I liked, the shows that I watched had any bearing on me as a person or had any bearing on my coolness. I just didn't aspire to it. I loved school. I was good at it. And you come to an age around, I say, 10, 11. I was all closeted and gay. But I don't think at that time I even knew. I don't know. But there was a feminine aspect to my behavior that was easy to cling on to for people who were displeased with the fact that I wasn't looking to fit in. I wasn't looking up to cool kids. I wasn't trying to placate. I wasn't trying to imitate. If not, then people start to notice you, but not in the way where, this person's interesting. In a way of, why isn't this person trying to be like us? Or why isn't this person trying to fit in with us?
Yeah.
And that sort of made me become a target. And it was like years, I remember, where I'd go to school and the classroom was the safe space because I'd have the classroom, I'd sit in front, I'd know everything. I was one of those annoying kids. And then, and then at recess, I wouldn't leave. I'd stay in the classroom.
Aww.
Because going outside meant that people would be physically violent, people would be verbally abusive. I remember I was in school in this place in Israel I grew up in. It was called Kfar Shmaryahu, which is a tongue twister for anyone listening. Give yourself a go, which is a very, on the one hand, good neighborhood, a very affluent neighborhood. On the other hand, the upbringing and the education that the children there get is so influenced and so impacted by the affluence of their parents. This is how they measure each other, even at that very young age. When I came into that school being a new student, I transferred from somewhere.
How old were you?
I was 10.
Oh, okay.
I didn't really know the rule book of who's who knows who, but that sort of started, how should I say it? I think that's what made people notice my difference and then more and more cling on to aspects of myself that they saw as worthy of ridicule. I have feminine motions, tendencies, the way I spoke, the way I walk. I like to skip around.
That's so nice. That's so sweet.
Yeah, and I would listen to music all the time and I would always have my head in some book, but people didn't like it. They made sure to make my life miserable.
Aww.
And it's kids. On the one hand, if I look back at it, I can't say I'm not angry. I can't say I'm not resentful of this treatment, but I also have the adult understanding that children are children and they are projecting their own insecurities and what they see in their own homes.
Absolutely.
But I was very fortunate. Well, not in that regard. In the bullying regard, it was a constant nightmare of coming to school being called gay, which was at the time a very offensive word. And now is a word that I use to describe my sexual exploits. We repurposed it.
Yeah, good.
But I always had my mom, and my mom was always there to step in. My mom would always walk into school if there need be, and there was the need a lot of time.
So wait, so did you tell her? Like, you didn't internalize it and just not say it. You actually told her about it? Were you open?
You know me, honey boo. When I'm in my feelings, I'm in my feelings. When you hurt me, you hurt me. When you angered me, you've angered me. I have zero capacity of having any poker face when it comes to how I feel. Yeah. Which is a problem in some respects in my life, because if I don't like someone, you'll see it. If I feel incensed by something, you'll see it. If I am sad, you'll see it. If I'm distracted, you'll see it. But in that respect, it was an asset, because my parents were not out of the loop.
Good.
My mom knew what was going on. I'd come back from school crying.
Yeah.
I didn't have any friends. I wouldn't go anywhere. I didn't want to go anywhere. I loved school. And then there was a period where I didn't want to go to school, which was weird.
Yeah, for you, you're so academic.
Yes, and I just really enjoyed it. And so
that's interesting. So you would come home, your mom would be like, "What's wrong?" And then you would just have a conversation.
This kid said that kid said that, they did this. One time this kid told me that he would put a knife to my throat.
What?
And held a Japanese knife, the type of knife that you use to, like, let's say, skin fish. I found that, that you can, like, raise and lower.
Sounds ridiculous.
For, like, paper mache creations or whatever. Just from my throat in his mind. It was very that. And when things like that happen, my mom My mom is fearless in that.
I know.
So
She is.
she would march into school and instill order. The sad bit was that the teachers were quite helpless. They weren't upstarts in that regard. They had the school to think about, whose parents are involved, whose kid mum comes to the bake sale. We don't want to we don't know any of that. And my family and I were kind of new on the block. And so the incentive to act, I remember the school headmaster was very reluctant. She said, well, it's kids. And my mum said, great, kids and adults, when you bring a knife, same standard.
Yeah, completely inappropriate.
Yeah, so it was very difficult. And after 2 years...
So did she have to go to the parents of the child, or did she just leave it with the school?
Well, it wasn't like any particular child. So that particular child got suspended afterward and reprimanded for it.
But that's like super traumatic. I mean, having your life threatened, that's very intense.
It was intense in the sense that you don't understand, and you genuinely don't, in my position. Why is it that you're being targeted in this way? Or why is it that these people are now considering you worthy of this treatment? What about me is so abhorrent to you that not only do you not try and become my friend or get to know me, but you're also so obsessed with my existence that you can't leave me alone. You feel the urgent need to make me understand that I am undesirable to you in some sense.
Right.
And that was a conundrum that I never quite understood.
Yeah.
And after 2 years, I think the resolution was I moved schools.
Right. Wow. And then was that the end of the bullying?
It wasn't. So when I moved to the new school, there were, again, same sort of bullseye on my back as far as being a bit more feminine in my behavior and in my conduct. But I was also an athlete.
Right.
I became a very good athlete. Sports, which is funny because I saw it recently in this Netflix documentary about Caitlyn Jenner. And she was talking about when she was Bruce and how sport was the outlet where if I do this and I do this very well, then I'm a man. Then I'm the image of manhood. Then there's no doubting. And sport was very much the same sanctuary for me. Well, so long as I was a star athlete, people left me alone.
And so you did athletics.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. And you excelled. So wait, so let's go back to, I'm really happy to hear, obviously there was like a segue out. I have to say, I mean, I am so glad that your experience was slightly different because when I was bullied in school, I had the opposite where I internalized it and I was almost embarrassed that it was happening. Yeah. Therefore, I didn't talk about it with my mom. And my mom is very similar. Like Mama Bear would have stormed in, grabbed the kid probably, directly.
She is Mama Bear.
Yeah, she really is. Just like yours. Still that order sort of situation. I guess the point is I was just there was like a shame that I felt with that. Did you feel any sort of shame or were you intuitive enough at such a young age to say, oh, this is their issue rather than I'm doing something?
I never thought, the picking on the feminine element. Yes, I internalized it. And in my life going forward, I've really tried to minimize. It's a process. It's almost like a reverse bell curve where my natural slightly feminine tendencies, and even now I feel the need to say slightly before I say feminine tendency, right? Even now, this has those reverberations and those echoes. I have to say slight. I have feminine tendencies. I have conducts. I have hand motions. I have a twang to my voice that sounds slightly feminine. And there is nothing wrong with that ab initio in itself. But when people make you believe there's something wrong with that, it sticks. And so you try to push it in the other direction completely. And then you become this version of yourself that isn't really yourself. And I think a lot of LGBT, especially gay men, but all LGBT individuals, and I'm sure from other ends of the spectrum, I can't speak for anyone else's experience. But then when you come out and, oh, I am gay now, this is it. Like people know I've survived, I'm alive, I'm intact. Then you start to reintroduce those bits because you start to live as yourself and it becomes more and more natural. You get back in the rhythm, you have those tendencies again, but all that conditioning that you've done as a response to society still has an impact. So I'm sure that if I was living in a Schitt's Creekian world, right?
Yes.
A Dan Levy created universe.
Yes.
There's no homophobia.
I know, right?
I could have been a much more flamboyant individual. I might have not been a gym bunny that needs to maintain a hyper-masculine physique. I don't know, I might have gone around and been a more feminine version of myself. That was a more natural inclination and I would have been happy. But I'm also happy with this.
So I guess what I'm taking from your experience in bullying, the good thing, first of all, not internalizing it. And then also your mom being super proactive and really stepping in and being like, this is not going to be tolerated. And I think those are two big things that I think you've highlighted, which I think they were fortunate in a way that you had those two things going for you at a time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who are being bullied sort of develop this weird Stockholm syndrome when they put themselves in an echo chamber of their bullies' remarks or opinions. Because they hear those remarks or opinions so often from people who are allegedly, even though it's not the case, but it seems to you objective, or more objective than your family and your parents, then you come to believe that those opinions are more valid than the opinions of the people who love you. So your mom everybody has that trope where your mom says, you're beautiful, well, you have to say it because you're my mom. And you come to listen more to the negativity that's coming out of these other people.
Yeah.
You were talking about tips earlier. The best tip that you can give people in that situation, in my situation, in other situations, is even if you don't believe those people who say the good things, even if you don't think that they're saying it because they genuinely believe it, just surround yourself with them. So that's what you hear. Even if you don't believe it, that's what you hear and that's what's around you. It's much better to be around that. It's much better to be around people who are fake nice to you than people who are disgusting to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, yes, I agree 100%. I was reading something actually today in a book by Vex King. And he was saying that our thoughts are all made up of essentially our experiences interacting with people. And so if you are constantly surrounded by people who tell you how bad you are, even if you have pretty good self-confidence, you might start doubting yourself. Whereas if you surround yourself with positive people who are actually telling you how great you are, that actually can really impact, even if it is just your mom telling you how awesome you are. But you know what? At the end of the day,
it happens by osmosis.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
If you're around and this is what you hear at some point, you're going to believe it.
Okay, so we talked about obviously experiences of bullying that you had at school. Did you ever, following those sorts of experiences, ever have bullying in the workplace? Sometimes it's a little bit different, right? Because you have someone who's obviously in the hierarchy. Yeah. Has that ever happened to you?
Yes. When you're 18 in Israel, there's mandatory conscription. I was in the intelligence corps, and for about a year and a half, I was a very good soldier. I was very good at my job. I was very successful at it. And that also meant that I was very demanding of other people sometimes because I was at the ranks. I became more authoritative, and there was some person who was working at the IT department who didn't match with that aspect of my personality. And I understand that. Other people have different types of management approaches, and mine was to be very direct. And if there were things I didn't like or things I thought were going wrong, then I just say it, which some people agree with, some people disagree with. But in response to that, so I distinctly remember in the email, you could have shortcuts for people's emails. So you could write, let's say I wanted to email you, instead of writing Nicole whatever at whatever, I would put honey, Control K, and Nicole would appear. That would be your nickname. Any nickname, Control K. And everybody had their own nickname. It was funny. Mine was Toulouse, I think, for some reason. Don't even remember.
Like France, Toulouse, France.
I think like Aristocats. We were not that sophisticated.
Of course. Aristocratic, yes.
Not provincial towns in France, just Disney cartoon. But yes, and he changed it from that to fag, the equivalent, fag, Control K, and my name would appear. And I don't remember how it got to me, but it got to me and I did it. And I distinctly remember sitting there. And I was 19, 20. It was after I'd just come out, just become okay with my identity, with understanding that this word isn't offensive towards me because it is what I am, and that's great and that's fine. And all of a sudden seeing that again really, really hurt.
Yeah, that's really hurtful.
That's really hurtful. That's really up. And my commander at the time was also a gay man.
Okay.
Yes. And I spoke to him about it. We didn't really get along because I think we had very different outlooks on life and work. But on that, I knew that I'd have an ally. I spoke to him and I said, listen, this is what happened. This is the situation. This is what this person did. And he was very proactive about it. And I will always be very grateful for that he acted, that he took it very seriously. That
what did he do?
They instilled the very no tolerance policy. So this guy was reprimanded. He was grounded at the base for, I think, 2 weeks or 3 weeks and was made to write an apology. But the impact of that, of seeing that again, years after this word was weaponized against me.
Yeah. Yeah.
being weaponized against, being isolated as a bad attribute or an attribute to be ridiculed was quite alarming. I was quite taken aback.
But how did you handle it? I appreciate you took action, almost like you were your own version of your mom in the sense that you talked about it. You got things moving institutionally. But how did you deal with it emotionally? Did you talk to your commander about it?
I talked to him about it.
Yeah.
He was very understanding and very supportive on that, because I think
Yeah.
him being a gay man was also a big deal in that. And he completely understood where I was coming from.
Yeah.
And it hurt so much. I think the way I dealt with it was I was hurt at the beginning, and then my Machiavellian self kicked in. And I was like,
Oh, God.
I'll make a much bigger deal out of this. Deal, because I want to see this person punished for this.
Okay,
I'm in the Meryl Streep, honey.
Yes,
I was pouring out of you. This is like I had a Sophie's Choice moment. It was very that. But I was very angry at that person for daring to do that and weaponizing that word against me again. I was at a place where I would not accept this.
Wow.
When you're a child, you, like I said, internalize it and try and understand why people are weaponizing this. What is wrong about this? And if people are weaponizing this, then there must be a reason. But the reason is you. The inverse of growing up and understanding it is people are weaponizing this. There must be a reason. The reason is them.
Exactly.
It's their reason. It's their issue.
Yes.
You can't let somebody, just because they're acting violently towards you, verbally or whatever way, transfer their issues onto you. You have your own to deal with.
Exactly.
I have my own to deal with. I don't need that.
Do you know what? I agree 100%. And I think what I've started saying lately is that it's a their problem, not a me problem, or it's a them problem, not a me problem. And I really like to say that whenever I have an issue, I'm like, well, this is clearly a their problem. This is a them problem. But it is true. And I think you're absolutely right. I think recognizing, being able to separate yourself from them and saying, if I go into a store and I'm just doing what I'm doing and I'm being polite and, you know, who I am, and all of a sudden someone has a problem with me, well, it actually is their problem, not mine. But I still struggle with internalizing, oh, did I do something? Maybe it's this, maybe it's that, whatever it is. I still sometimes internalize it. But, you know, I think it does boil down to personality sometimes too.
You seek to be liked.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm definitely a people pleaser.
I'm a people pleaser as well, but being liked is not an aspirational goal of mine. Because of my past and because of my experiences, that's why I am like that. Because situations like the one you're describing, it is an asset. No, I am not looking to be liked by you. Therefore, if you have a problem with me, I don't care.
I just love that. This is what everyone should say. I don't care. That's a good one. That's a good one. Now you can use that quote. If you don't like me, I don't care. I'm going to start trying to use that. Okay. Well, let's move on to the next segment. So let's say two scenarios. The first scenario is, let's say we have a listener who's younger, maybe high school, and they're being bullied. What do you say to them as someone who has gone through it?
It's interesting because there are several things that I could say. One is I distinctly remember this exercise that I did when I was at a very low point and I felt really bad about myself. And my mum was trying to cheer me up and she said, there must be one thing about you that you like. There can't be nothing. There is one thing. Go stand in front of the mirror and find it. Which is my mom. Like, do something. Act. And I stood in front of the mirror and I was a teenager. I didn't feel handsome. I didn't feel smart. I didn't feel accomplished at all at the time. And you stand in front of the mirror and you stood there feeling like an idiot, very bitter about the fact that my mom instructed me to stand in front of the mirror now. Because if anybody instructs you to do something, immediate antagonism. But I stood there and I thought about it and I said, okay, what do I do? What? You know what? I have really nice eyes.
Yeah.
I really like my eyes. They are the bluest thing. Right?
Yeah.
That is a start. And then you build on that.
Yes.
And then you're able to give yourself not a compliment, but you're able to start. Well, we both watch Drag Race. Like, if you can't love yourself, well, you start being able to love yourself a bit more.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Now, is that something you did every day or was that just the start of it?
It's subconscious because when you recognize and acknowledge something about you that you like, then it's less exposed and less vulnerable to being attacked by other people. Somebody would call me ugly. If somebody would call me fat, if somebody would call me names, and I'd be like, I don't agree. You find the ability to disagree because you have an argument. You have an internal argument countering it. That's why it's so difficult. If somebody comes up to me and says I'm ugly, and I never try to think of why I'm not ugly, then I accept it. But if I've ever sat down and thought to myself, what is beautiful about me? And I found something. Like my mom said, you will. Everybody has something they like about themselves. And you find it. And somebody tells you, you're ugly. And then you have a counter argument. Well, actually, I have really nice eyes. I think my cheekbones are fantastic. Or actually, I have really lush, long brown hair. Everybody has that thing. And suddenly you have a counter argument, which takes the sting out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I like that because I think those sorts of lessons or like little tidbits of advice, those are things that I think if I had heard that and I was 13 being bullied and being able to step back and actually say, actually, no, you think this, you said this, but actually I believe this. It's this element of reasoning and critical thinking. I think that's a really good exercise for young people to start doing, even if they're not being bullied.
You can critically think about yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. And what about in the workplace, if you have a boss, let's say, who you find is a bully? For me, I find that really difficult because this is a person in power. This is a person who is an authority figure and who could have an impact on your career, right? And so my question is, what advice would you give to an adult dealing with bullying in the workplace, especially if maybe someone who's more senior than them?
I mean, it is a much more nuanced perspective. It's less about self-empowerment and more about workplace politics, career politics. The incentive for allowing the bullying to continue is different because there's monetary, there's career, there's other elements to it. It's much more difficult. I think in the workplace, even when I was in the military, which is the most demanding workplace, I didn't let anybody talk to me a certain way or behave towards me in a certain way because there's just an instinct of self-preservation that kicked in where you are saying to yourself, if I let this person treat me this way, then I am letting people treat me this way. And someone else will treat me this way and I'll continue.
Wow.
And apply this right now for my life. So it's an advice that I can dish in the workplace context and I cannot apply in other contexts. I feel there is always a way.
Yeah.
There always is a way of saying no or saying this isn't appropriate. That is also respectful and direct and to the point. I feel as an Israeli living in England, I feel that people here treat directness and bluntness on an equal footing as rudeness. If you're direct, it must mean you're being rude.
Interesting.
And it isn't.
Yeah.
If somebody is treating you poorly, you can say, listen, the way you're talking to me, the way you're behaving towards me is inappropriate. It is crossing a line between professional frustration, instruction towards the personal.
Yeah.
And I am sure that you are stressed and not noticing it, but because of that, I am pointing it out. And I would think that could change.
Yeah. It's like using your words.
Using your words in that way. But there are also situations like that where people abuse their positions of power in so many ways. And you have to understand whether this environment is good for you, whether you genuinely want to develop a career around this person or relying on this person. I know that in the military where people were talking down at me.
Yeah.
Well, do I want to placate these people and have a successful stint here? Or do I want to stand up for myself and have a successful stint at life?
Yeah, absolutely.
And feeling good about myself.
And you chose yourself, which is good.
It's much easier.
If you don't find it, did you say?
If you don't think you have leverage, look for it.
That's a very interesting point. Okay, thanks so much for sharing all the tips about the practical tips people can use if they're facing bullying themselves. Before we move on, I wanted to talk to you about your involvement in charity work that deals with bullying. And I think that's really powerful that you used your experience being bullied and then you basically turn it into something very, very positive in the sense that you're giving back and getting involved in charities that do this work. So I remember a few years ago, you were telling me that you got involved in the Diana Award, which is a charity that was founded on Diana, Princess of Wales' belief that young people have the power to change the world. And I remember that you mentioned at that time about your work in anti-bullying. So if you could talk to us about that, I think that's a really great cause that listeners should hear about.
Sure. So when I graduated from university in the UK, I was starting the BTC and I had some spare time on my hands and I wanted to contribute and give back and volunteer. And I felt that I have grown enough and matured enough and processed the experience enough to be able able to be of assistance and support for children who are being bullied, who are in my position. And I distinctly remember thinking, wow, we now have Facebook and Instagram and online, and bullying permeates now in children's lives in the home. There used to be such a distinct separation of spaces. The school and the home. Home was when it stopped. Now it doesn't. Now children have to face their bullies and handle their bullies online, in chat rooms, on TikTok, on WhatsApp groups. It is ridiculous, and there's no escape. And the need to tackle is so much greater. And I wanted to get involved. So I literally walked myself up there and knocked on their door and said, hi, I can help. I don't want money for this. And I have experience with this, and I would love to just assist you with stuff.
So wait, how did you find the Diana Award? Or was it just, did you just hear about it online or?
And I looked at anti-bullying charities. I was looking for an anti-bullying charity. Instead of lecturing at children and telling them the ills and the evils of bullying and explaining to them how bad and wrong it is, they take a different approach. So this was the brainchild of Alex Holmes, who is managing it, the anti-bullying division of the Diana Award. And he's a remarkable human being. He also received many awards from the Queen. And after I say the Queen, I can't say more people. The Queen.
You've made it.
I don't know the Queen. But others, obviously, for his work, and remarkable work. So basically what they do is, instead of exposing the evils of it and lecturing about it, they delegate and they show the children that they can take responsibility, and they give them a toolbox and they give them a skill set to deal with it. So they appoint anti-bullying ambassadors at schools. These anti-bullying ambassadors go through training and workshops. And it's an immersive teaching experience that allows children to feel like they have responsibility, have the opportunity to do good by their peers, and are being supported in it. And I feel like, and I still do, that it is such a remarkable and just spectacular way of approaching it, because you're taking something from the theoretical to the practical with kids, which is what you need to do, because the theoretical doesn't strike as hard still. And I got to work with them for about almost a year. And I really enjoyed my time there. I really enjoyed my work there. I knew that this meant that I could empathize with these kids on a different level than somebody who hasn't.
Absolutely.
I could listen to their plight and understand it and process it better than someone who hasn't.
Yeah.
And that genuineness of empathy, when it's really genuine, when it comes from a person who really understands you, it's felt. Yeah. And I think a lot of children who are being bullied need that feeling. Yeah, absolutely. Feel like they are not alone. Here is the person who's gone through this. They haven't gone on the other end, seemingly well. So that's what I wanted to give, and that's what I wanted to contribute. And you emerge with a skill set that might mean that I can help someone to go through this experience with less pain than I did. And then they go through this and have a skill set to help someone else go through this experience with even less pain than they did. Yeah, definitely. And that's what you can hope for. Well, the ethos that I try and live my life by, which is turning challenges into opportunities, you definitely embodied that. And so I'm really impressed. Honey Boo. By the way, for the listeners who don't know, you might hear Oriyan and I both call each other HB Honey Boo. And it's because that's our nickname that we established. I don't even remember. I think it started as a joke and it just stuck. Yeah, and it stuck. Anyways, I don't know if it had to do with Honey Boo Boo Child. I don't know. I can't remember. Just, like when you have a joke and it's really, really funny, and it steals this nickname, and then a few years later, you're just like, either it wasn't that funny, I don't know what I was doing, or I don't even remember. But it's stuck, and it's nice, and it's a special term of endearment between the two of us. Now, let's move on to the final topic, final segment, which is, Envisionaire Questionnaire. And this is a fun feature of our podcast where we ask our guests to answer questions from their past, present, and future. So, first question. Okay. I'm being Nostradamus, but... Once we've done the questions, you'll understand. So, first question. If you could offer yourself at 15 years old any advice, what would it be? Go with your natural inclinations and your natural tendencies. You have a natural flow about you. Yeah. You have things that naturally spike your interest and you find fascinating and fun. Keep doing that. Nice.
Okay, second question. Now, this is based on where you are currently in your life. If you could seek the advice of anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
The thing about advice, right, is that it is only effective, and especially with personal advice. I'm not running a country, so I don't need advice about the state of the world or advice about the progression of society, things that are up there. Advices that I would need is about me or my life or the very selfish things that I'm interested in, like anyone. And that would only come from people who really know me well. So I would want advice from the friends that I have and my mum.
I like that. That's nice. All right. Future looking question. What is one goal that you would like to achieve in the next 5 years?
It's so funny because when you think of goals, they're always such a pinpoint moment. I would like to achieve X. I would like to have Y. I would just want to be happy and bring happiness. In 5 years, I'd like to live in the comfortable knowledge that I bring happiness to the people I love and that I am happy and they bring me happiness. And so it's a very symbiotic relationship where we're all happy and nobody's anxious.
So it's like a state of being rather than a specific finite goal or...
If goals are what you're after, which everybody is, and I have been from my life as well. But if you dictate your life according to those, you will always have to deal with like moments of emptiness. And if your goal is just to be happy, then great. That's the overarching goal. Those other small goals, they'll be nice. It'll be nice to have my own startup, become the male Emily Weiss, and have little twin girls and a husband.
Aww, that's nice.
But I'd also be happy with just being happy.
Nice one. Well, thank you so much, Honey Boo. What an amazing interview. Thank you for sharing everything. Yeah, I'm grateful, very grateful. Pardon?
I had no idea, but you are Oprah. Such a soothing voice, such a researched questionnaire.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll take it.
100% wear makeup for this.
Oh, you're sweet. Thank you.
It'll be televised.
Yeah. Next step. That's maybe one of my goals. Anyway, okay. Lots of love. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to the Envisionaire podcast. You are now officially an Envisionaire, so welcome to the club. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this podcast so that you stay up to date on all of our new episodes. And remember, every day offers us a new opportunity to start envisioning and living our best lives.